I brought up my dashiki.
You're
With
from
the,
Kenya.
I'm sorry?
You from Kenya?
No, I'm from Uganda.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
Uganda, yeah, yeah. Well, where you from?
I'm Nigerian originally.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, nice, nice. Yeah. I was pretty close there last year. I got this from Senegal
Oh
last year. Yeah. You been there?
no, I haven't. I haven't.
Okay.
I have a couple of friends from Senegal and Cameroon.
Okay, yeah. It's a pretty nice place. Yeah. Um, yeah, just to get started, yeah, I just wanted to know about your iOS journey, what got you interested in it, and yeah, what has kept you motivated to keep developing with iOS?
Oh yeah, sure. So do you want me to start like from the way beginning, like how I started till like now?
Oh yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
definitely.
sure. So I started iOS. I think so. Computer science in general. When I was in college, I went to college in Kentucky. I was in I was a freshman in 2014,
Okay.
and I was actually studying business. But if you ever watch the Facebook movie, the sort of that, um, I watched that movie and I was like, yo, I think I can do this. Like I saw how like Mark Zuckerberg made Facebook and stuff. And I was
Right,
really inspired. Like, yo, I got some ideas I really wanted to do. So I was
right,
like, let me like find someone to build this app for me. But I was trying to find people. No one really wanted to work with me because what's it called? I had I had all the skill. They had all the skills. I just had the idea.
right.
And
It can get pretty expensive trying to hire a developer.
yeah, and it's kind of like now where like everyone's messaging me like, "Yo, I got this app idea and stuff like that." You know, everyone messaging me tells me that, so I know how they felt at the time. But I was like, you know what? Let me go learn this computer science thing. So I
Hmm,
went to Code Academy and I started learning JavaScript. And I did like a course on JavaScript. Took me some time. I finished it, and I was like, you know what? I really want to do something that's close to the user. I really want to be close to the user, and the
okay,
fastest way to get to a user is through their phones.
right,
So I was like, I think iOS is the best way. I went to Udemy. It took like an iOS course. It took me a long time, and the motivation wasn't there. If I had
right,
questions, it was so difficult to get answers from the
right.
professor, from the teachers, and whatever. And I was like, man, I really, really, really need to go somewhere where I could like focus. I started
Is it
looking at
with Objective C or Swift?
it was a Swift. I think it was
Swift.
Swift 3.
Swift 3, okay, okay.
This is right now. This is in 2016,
20,
20,
okay,
2015, 2016. Yeah,
right. Oh yeah, that was right around the same time I started as well, in
yeah,
2016. So
yeah. So
I
I
think that
started
was
looking,
like Swift 2, 2 or 3.
yeah, I started looking at boot camps, and then I found Dev Mountain, and I was in the bus, and I applied on my phone, and the
Mm,
process was really quick. You
right,
know, everything went
nice,
smooth. I couldn't make the
right.
first boot camp, but I ended up going to the second boot camp in 2017, which was I think around December, no, November 2017. So I
Gotcha.
attended the Dev Mountain boot camp in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Nice, nice. And yeah, what's the advantage of doing like a boot camp as opposed to just learning by yourself?
The biggest thing is with a boot camp is it has the ups and downs. The
Mm,
main advantage is you're surrounded by people who are just as hungry as you, if not more hungry.
right,
You It's not something that you can just you have to go to class. When you're
right,
taking something online, you're the only one, so the momentum
right,
is not there, and you can talk to your teachers at any time.
right. If
So
you
that
have
was
any questions and if you're stuck somewhere,
I personally, yeah, I
right,
personally recommend it.
mm,
Especially like a face-to-face boot camp.
right.
Uh,
Nice. And so were you able to build like some projects there,
oh
like
yes.
iOS apps? Okay.
So after like my last week of Dev Mountain, my last 3 weeks we had to come up with personal project,
Mm.
and I came up with this app called After Tax, and
After tax. Okay.
After Tax. So
After tax.
it's
Yes,
basically
okay.
an app that tells you. how much you make after taxes. So let's say you go for an interview and they tell you, hey, we're going to pay you $100,000 in Dallas, Texas. It
Right.
tells you exactly how much you're going to keep. So out of the 100,000, you might keep like 75,000, or if you're
Right.
single, married, you might keep like 69,000.
Right.
It
Right.
helps you calculate all of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's
so
like in every state it's different.
yeah, and if you're
Like,
married and if you got kids and all of that, it's just like it's. I feel like people like us in tech, we don't want to be worried about that.
right.
Calculating. I made that app for just the everyday people to use,
Right. Right.
and the app did well. Started
Nice.
giving me some buzz. I think right now it has about 10,000 downloads.
Oh wow. It's a
Yeah,
big number. Nice. So
yeah.
you must have done a lot of marketing stuff.
Normally, I just put on my Instagram and like, especially for some reason during tax season, the app like moves. It has nothing to do with like filing your taxes, but
Right.
I think because of the name also.
Right.
But
Right.
my first job was with a company called Flora Living.
Okay.
Um, so I was an iOS. I was working for free. I just wanted to get my hands in. I was iOS developer.
Right.
Um, I was just doing whatever it took just to get in. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't get
Right.
paid $1. And the
Oh
company,
wow.
the app actually had like almost 1 million downloads. It was
Oh
started
wow.
by an R&B singer. Her name is Kelani. So she
Kanani.
has like, yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
she
She
got
has
like,
like a lot of tattoos.
yeah. She got
Yeah.
she got like 20 million followers in the social media, like all her accounts. So like once you post the link, like it went crazy.
Oh man, that's amazing. So what did the app do? Like,
It's basically for living a healthy lifestyle. So for
okay,
example, you will walk 10,000. If you take 10,000 steps a day, you get certain points. If you drink a gallon of water a day, you get certain points. If you go vegan for a week, something like that. It was basically for people to be rewarded for living a healthy lifestyle.
right. And do you get to like invite your friends in it, or is it
Yeah. You can join friends. You can join groups,
right,
and
right,
like if you're going through like mental health issues, you can relate to people.
right,
And stuff
right.
like that. It was a cool app though. But
Nice.
it was a startup as well. So like they got some investments, but I didn't get no money. So
Okay. But hey, the experience counts a lot. So
yeah, I tell a lot of people like if you
right,
can, just get the experience.
right, right.
Um, just just
It counts a
just
lot.
just jump in.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you working like on a team of developers, or is
yeah, so there was only two developers, right? It
okay,
was me and the CTO. He's a really smart dude. Like he did the
nice.
web, the back end, the iOS, the UI. He's a really smart guy. He's one of the reasons I became a designer as well. He's a really,
Nice.
really smart guy. Uh,
Nice.
so it was just me and him, and like he made like 90% of all the code and everything.
Oh, wow.
So working with him, I learned a lot.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it definitely helps working with like a senior developer.
yeah, sure, for sure, especially someone that you can relate to and ask questions and all of that.
Right, right. Nice.
Yeah, but
And so you mentioned you became a designer.
yeah, that's kind of in the full story. But after
Okay.
Flora, I'll get there.
Okay.
After Flora, um,
Yes.
um, it was tough for me to get like an iOS position because I was new. So I actually started while I was sending out interviews and sending out my applications, doing interviews. I
Mm.
started working at Wendy's.
Okay.
Then one day I get a call from one of my instructors that was in Lambda school, and he was like, "Yo," that was in Dev Mountain, sorry,
Okay.
the coding boot camp I went to in Utah. And he was like, "Yo, there's this new thing called Lambda School. It's an online coding boot camp, just like Dev Mountain. I want you to come join, do an interview to be a PM for the iOS. So you kind of like a mentor."
Okay.
So
Okay.
I mean, I was working at Wendy's. I didn't even need to. I said yes right at the spot.
Right.
He called me on like Friday. I started working on Monday.
Right.
So
Oh
Lambda
wow. That
School
was
is,
really fast.
yeah. Oh man, I
Right.
left real quick. Yeah, I became a mentor,
So
and
that right. It really helps like teaching the concepts.
yeah, oh
Right.
yeah. Cool thing about
You
being a mentor is as you're
right.
teaching, you learn so much better. I feel like
Right.
to learn something is to teach it
Yeah,
because
you
you
get like deeper knowledge.
exactly you get deeper knowledge.
Right. Right.
So I did that for a couple of months, and then my first official job was with a company in Nashville called Mobile Mentor.
Okay.
Um, They
What
worked
do
with
they?
they work in the medical field, so they worked
Okay.
directly with a client called HCA, Hospital Corporation of America, and,
Mm.
I worked on two applications. One was a physician application, and one was a patient application. So basically, I worked with like if you ever used health app on your phone, it tracks like how many steps you take,
Right,
your
right,
blood pressure, and
right.
stuff like that. So
Diet.
and diet on all of that.
Right,
And
right, right.
basically, what the app was doing is, let's say you're a patient, you just got a surgery, you can
Yeah.
use that our app, and we just track all your like how much steps you take a day, your blood pressure, your
Hmm.
heart rate, and then it just directly gets sent to your physician without you having to send that information.
Oh,
So
wow.
so he
Nice.
can money he, you can the physicians can monitor their patients like automatically. You know what I
Right.
mean? You can
Nice.
just call your patient and be like, hey, your blood
Right.
pressure is getting too low. You should probably come to the hospital.
Right.
So it was a
Nice.
it was a it
Was
was a
that built with like the health kit framework, I
yeah,
believe?
yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. Nice, nice.
yeah. It was actually one of the my students, Alanda, brought her over to work with me.
Hmm.
So um, it was
Nice.
it was a really cool project. At the same
Right.
time, I was working full time with Nashville. I was also working. I was also a mentor in Lambda in the evenings.
Right. Okay, right. Because it was online, so you couldn't.
So I was
Okay.
doing two, and also
Wow.
I was also
Yeah.
doing contracting for another company. So I was working like three different jobs.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, you got a lot of hustle, grind
Yeah,
anyway. Right.
I was making
Right.
good money.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. It's all about the money at the end of the day, I
Yeah,
guess.
and then I was just trying to gain
Yeah.
my experience. I was just
And
because
experience as well. Yeah.
I really wanted to, grow really quick.
Right.
So, but unfortunately, the company in Nashville had to close the mobile app team. Um,
Hmm.
so I got laid off while I was still working with Lambda and the other company that I was contracting with. So I had the two contracts I was doing,
Yeah.
and then the other company I was contracting with, they decided they didn't want an iOS developer no more. So I was stuck with just Lambda. But the good thing about it is that I saved all my money from working in
Nice.
the contract. So it came to I had to leave Nashville, and I was like, "Yo, what am I gonna do?" And I remember the when I was working in Florida, and the CTO, he was like so smart. He knew design and stuff. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go learn UX design. Yeah. So I took about 3 months. I took a course in Udemy um, um, to learn UX design. I think I'm actually pretty good because I met with some designers and they were pretty like really impressed. So
Yes.
I learned UX design, and then when UX design was,
What tool do you use with that? Is that a
I use
sketch?
I use Sketch, I use Figma, I use Adobe.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Design is pretty big. Like knowing how the colors work together
Oh
and all
yeah,
the
yeah.
steps and the user experience.
But yeah, and then you learn to appreciate the user more. You learn to you like when you're in design, you kind of realize you make the app for the user and not the user for the app. So that's something I had to learn.
So
Um,
what are your thoughts on is it SF Pro for typography?
SF Pro,
Yes.
the font.
Yeah, the fonts. Yeah, yep. Apple's fonts. So
Oh,
like, right?
those
Because yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, because like I believe they released it last year in iOS 13, the
Yeah.
tool that it's like a standard across. They want it to be like the same font across all the iOS 13 apps, an app. So what do you do for like iOS 11 apps to try to make it consistent with the new version?
The thing with that is, so when I was working in Nashville, I think that's when the SF Pro became big, and we actually started using it. But from a UX perspective, your fonts depend on your user. Everything depends on the type of user you have. So if you, for example, if you're making an app for kids,
Mhm.
you probably shouldn't use SF Pro because it's regular. You want to use something like Avenir Next. That's what Snapchat uses because it catches people's eyes.
I
Or if
see.
you're making like an app for like anime or whatever,
Right.
you might want to use something different. So I mean, it's
Right.
okay. One thing I like about SF Pro is like
Mhm.
if you're making a regular app, it works for you, and you don't want font to use, you should probably use SF Pro.
Right. And you get that automatic dynamic text.
Yeah,
Yep, increases and decreases. Nice.
that's one cool thing
And
about
okay,
it.
and follow-up question to that is, so you've had a lot of experience in several different teams so far.
Yeah.
And so how do you like, what are your thoughts on collaboration with team members? What is like an efficient way to like stay on the same page together?
Um, I'm really big on communication. I think communication is the biggest language in
Right.
whatever team you're working with, not just tech. Um, so I think communication is really important. When a project comes, everyone should know exactly what they're doing and what's expected, so there's no confusion.
Yeah.
That's one thing that stands out for me. I'm currently working with a company right now called SoberGrid, and from day one, communication has always been big. You know, if you have a question, we can talk to the PM, or I can talk to the Android developer, just so we're on the same page. I think if you can communicate well in general, like soft skills, if having those soft skills,
Right.
is really important.
Right.
Great. First of all, I like to say, never do this.
Yes.
Idea, whatever
Yeah.
you never do this. So one
Right.
thing, when I explain to my students, I normally say,
Mhm.
so an optional first is basically anything that can be nil. So,
Right.
for example, if we have a room and then
Yes.
we say um, there is a bed in that room, there's a
Mhm.
possibility a bed might not be in that room. There's a possibility a bed might be in that room. So it's optional. Or
Right.
it's an apartment. Like there's a chance of the apartment having a dishwasher. There's a chance for it not having a dishwasher. So a dishwasher in the apartment is optional.
Right.
So anytime you use force unwrap in iOS, you're saying, I am 100% sure there is a dishwasher in that apartment. And then you're saying
Yes.
if there is not, the whole building can crash.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're
You
just
never
basically
should
forcing, you're basically saying, so
forcing it.
you're
Yes.
basically saying something exists. But the problem with that, if it does not exist, your whole entire app will crash. So
Gotcha.
basically,
Good,
get person right.
good explanation. And what's a good way to check if there's something in there?
One of the best ways to check is I forgot what it's called, but I forgot the terminology for it. But my best way
Like,
to check is using a guard statement.
right, right. Yep.
Um, um,
Optional chaining. So,
optional. There we go.
yep.
Yeah, it's using a guard statement just to say, or basically to people who don't code, is just basically saying, does
Mhm.
this does this exist? If it does, do this. If not, do this else. So the computer, when it gets there, if it gets to the apartment and
Right,
there's no if there's a dishwasher, okay, cool, it does this.
right,
If not, skip to the next apartment.
right. Nice. Simple as that. So
Yeah,
yeah, you can also use an iflet statement as well.
yeah, exactly. If let.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's go to the next question. Yeah, we're just gonna go through like 10 questions. And then. So, what is the main advantage of Swift?
One thing I like about Swift is I call it a protective languages, a protective language, and
Mhm.
it prevents you from making some mistakes. So, for example, it makes you, if you don't force unwrap, it makes you and your whatever you have is optional. It makes you kind of check. It's like, yo, you said there's a washing machine in this apartment, but can you go just check to make sure? Can you say just in case there is no washing machine, we should do something? So like, it just that's one advantage about it is that it helps you check. Another advantage is structs. It comes with structs, which is really important. So structs, they kind of not go too technical, but they hold really low memory when it comes to storing things.
Right.
So because they are what's that word?
Strongly typed. The
Yeah.
value types.
So they're just like a copycat. They're not like have strong references to
Yeah.
things.
Okay. And let's go to the next question. All right. So, what do you use to lay out and navigate your view in iOS?
When you say layout, what do you mean?
Oh, what do you use to lay out, like to lay out your views? Let me say, for example, a storyboard.
Oh, I see, I see. So I do
Or,
both. I do storyboards and I do programmatic,
okay.
programmatic way, which is completely code and no storyboard. The company I'm working with right now is
Mm-hmm.
completely programmatic. The company I was working with before this was completely
Yep.
programmatic. So I do both. I prefer to do it programmatic because if you're working with a team, a huge
Mm-hmm.
amount of team, it saves you from merge conflicts.
Right, right.
Everything is in code. Um,
And what's
so
a merge conflict like?
a merge conflict is basically me and you were both working on the file. I change something, then you go change what I changed, and then when we're trying to merge your code and my code together, it's like something's not making sense. It's two different files that are changed. So it wouldn't accept it.
Right. So you prefer to do it programmatically at the end
Yeah,
of the day.
all code, all code.
Right,
It's kind of boring at first, but
right,
once you get
right.
the hang of it, you start to love it.
Yeah. You can also have like extensions, helpers to like make it very convenient to the
Yeah.
attributes. Yeah, nice. The next question. Can you see my
Yeah. So
iPad?
what's
Okay.
the difference between a synchronous and asynchronous task? So
Yes.
basically, a synchronous task is um, it gets a list of things. Your computer gets a list of things,
Mm-hmm.
and it does it one by one as they appear. So imagine going to the bank, and then you're in a queue. The bank teller is gonna do like a first come first serve.
Gotcha.
So if the person on the second line can't find their receipt or whatever, every no they're not gonna attend to the third person. The whole thing is gonna stop until the second person gets their receipt. So if the second person is taking time, the whole line stops until the second person is ready to go. And synchronous means basically, so there's a queue, same thing, a queue from a bank, but the second person is taking time, they can't find their receipt, they'll be like, hey, you know what? The third person, you can come in. So
Gotcha.
it's more like whoever is ready first gets attended to.
Right, 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 right. Or they could all be attended at the same time.
Yes, but with asynchronous is it's more how will I say, as
Multi-threading.
yeah, so synchronous is everything stops until if you're going A B C D, everything stops until A is done, B is done, C is done.
Right.
Asynchronous is whoever gets done first, come in.
Gotcha. And I think there's the concept of grand GCD.
Oh yeah, Grand Central Dispatch.
Right, right, right. Yep. And I think that's the concept.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah. That's the concept behind this. There's so many ways, and so for not to even talk too much, but for the users, the best way I explain it is,
Mm-hmm.
so post a if you post something on Instagram, you
Right,
can go to your timeline and then you can see the post like it's still posting, but you can still scroll on your timeline. It doesn't stop. That's because
gotcha.
it's on
Right,
asynchronous.
right,
So when your post is finished, it will come back and join the timeline, but everything doesn't stop.
right,
Synchronous means you're gonna post and everything, your whole app stops until the whole post is
right.
complete.
And a quick follow-up to that is when do you want to use like your main threads as opposed to the background threads?
Yeah. So a lot of people get confused when they hear threading.
Right.
So
Yeah.
basically, everything that's done in the app is done on different threads. One way
Yeah.
to explain is we're all going somewhere, but we're going on a highway to different roads. There's the
Right.
main road, there's the highway road, there's the side roads that the cops use or whatever. But the
Right.
main thread is everything you see on the view. So the
Right.
main thread is anything that has that. If you open the app, what you see on the view, that's the
Mm-hmm.
thread one. That's the main thread. So the
Right.
main idea is if you do something like you post on you post a picture on Instagram, that happens
Mm,
in the background thread. So whenever it gets done, it comes back to the main thread. So just act like we all going on the road, and then
right,
someone stops to get gas. The
right,
road is not going to stop until the whole traffic's not going to stop for the person to come back. Everything's going to keep going, and then whenever the person gets gas, they can just come back and join it. So that's asynchronous. By
right.
synchronous means, if it's synchronous, it means the whole traffic's got to stop.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better.
Okay.
Nice. All right. So next question. What is a completion handler?
Sure. A completion handler is just a set of, it just basically tells you, it's a function that tells you what to expect when that function gets completed. So a completion handler is normally used in network calls because they're done in the background thread and they're done asynchronous. So if you go post a picture, you want to know if your picture was successful or not.
Right.
So that success message would be put in the completion handler. A visual example would be you go deposit money in the bank. You're probably going to wait there until you get your receipt, right? Because you want to make sure it got deposited. So a completion handler helps you say, okay, you got a success or you got a failure. If not, if there was no completion handler, you just be depositing money, you just keep waiting. Even though your money had already deposited, you're just waiting to hear something back. So completion handler helps you um, know, like the word says, it helps you know when that specific task is completed.
Yeah. Whether it's a success or failure.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Why? What do you use to layout? Oh, we already answered
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What is MVC?
So MVC is basically trust. I tell people it sounds more difficult than it actually is. It's basically just a way to organize your code. They call it like design architecture. So if you're organizing your code, MVC, there are multiple ways. One is MVC, another one is MVVM, and there's some others that some nerds has come up with, but the most popular is MVC, MVVM. MVC stands for Model View Controller. So anything that has to do with data, for example, data is like a blueprint. If you're making an app like Instagram, username, password, age, those are all data points. Those are the blueprints of the app. They go under the model. The view is basically everything you see. So the message view, the timeline view, the post picture view, that goes in views. So they're made with table views and views. But controllers is the function that integrate the models and the views. So for example, a function to post a picture will go in the controller. A function to delete a user or block a user will go in the controller. So that's the concept of MVC. I prefer to use a different architecture called MVVM, but that's the idea of MVC, just to keep the code organized. So MVVM stands for model view model.
Yeah.
I think model view model.
Right.
Then oh man, M stands for model, V stands for view, and then VM stands for view model. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, your MVVM is just an easier way to organize your code so you can test it. The
Yeah.
idea is you're taking out the implementation from the view controllers, which, like I said, like message view controller, message view will be like a view controller,
Mhm.
post like something you see like that will be a view controller. You're taking out the implementation and then you put in the view model. The main idea is the data points, which is the model, should
Mhm.
have no relation with the view controllers. They should integrate with the view models. That way you can test it. Another way to describe it to people who don't know tech is if you're a football player, when it's
Mhm.
time to negotiate your contract, you should not talk to the team. Your agent should talk to the team. So that agent is your view model.
Nice. And it's usually used with like RX Swift.
Yeah, I think RX Swift is kind of like a protocol-based implementation. I haven't used it as much. I've heard about it. Um, I think it's kind of a way to notify and kind of like a protocol idea, but you can also use it
Mhm.
with or without RX Swift.
Gotcha. Yeah, and yeah, MVVM also makes your code a lot more modular as well,
Yeah,
and you can test
and
it
clean it
easily.
too.
Yeah, nice. So next question. How do you map JSON coming from the backend?
Uh, well, well, there are many ways to do this. The easiest way I know is you can use. So one great thing about structs is that they come with encoders and decoders. It can be of type encoder and decoder. So encoder is just the way you encode stuff to JSON. You can, and decoder is the way you decode stuff from JSON. So encoder in normal English would be translating Spanish to English, while decoding would be translating. Sorry, encoding would be translating English to Spanish, while decoding would be translating Spanish back to English.
Right.
So my best way to decode stuff from JSON, which is like what comes from the back end, is
Mm.
JSON encoder.
And do you use like third-party do you use third-party frameworks to serialize it,
Some
like
of the
Alimorphire? Or,
some of the companies I worked with, they do. I prefer not to. I
okay.
actually hate using Cocoa Pods because they're basically someone else's code that you're putting in your project.
Mhm.
And let's say Swift 5 or Swift 6 comes along and the person hasn't, updated their code, your whole app stops. So I'd
Right.
rather just do it myself. You're basically just depending on someone else.
Exactly. Okay. Might as well just go with your session.
If you have the time.
Gotcha. Nice. All right. Next question. What is the application lifecycle?
So the application lifecycle is just like the word says. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically the life cycle of any app you use. So I can't remember the life cycle from the top of my head, like from when it opens. But I'll give you an example. When you open Instagram, the first thing you see that happens is called
Yeah.
view will appear. That means whatever you see is about to appear. So if you want a certain function to happen before your view appears, you can call view will appear.
Well, that is like a view controller lifecycle.
Oh,
But
my bad. You're talking about the
app,
application lifecycle.
yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
It's like
remember.
in the app delegate did
Yeah,
finish flush.
app delegate. I can't remember the functions from the top of my head.
Right, right,
There um is it the app in background?
right,
I,
right.
I can't remember them
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, but it's like a life cycle of like did finish launching, like
exactly.
goes to the foreground.
Yeah, it goes to the background, like when you slide it up,
Mhm.
um, when you dismiss the application.
Right,
So just basically, sorry, I was talking about the view controller, but the life cycle of the app, like you said, is basically, from when you open the app
right.
to when you dismiss the app to when the app is in backgrounds. Yeah, those wordings, like I don't memorize them. It was hard to remember them from the top of my head, but
Right.
yeah, they're really important in case you want to do something like notifications. You have to know if the app is in the foreground, like if it's running at a time or if the app is closed. So there's a different times you can send notifications to a user, you know.
Yep. Great. And let's go to the next question. All right. What is an optional and a nil? We kind of went over this.
Yeah,
Uh,
you kind of did.
yeah. Let's go to the next. What is the difference between the frame and the bounds of a UI view?
I can't remember that from the top of my head. I think frame is I can't one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have to look at my code, but one of them has to do with like there's certain points and views. Oh man, I can't remember. I know one of them is like 0, 0,
Yes.
but the other is like a certain point. I
Right.
can't remember. from
Right.
top
It's
to
based
tail.
on the location and the size.
Exactly.
Right, right. And
So
yeah, it's
go ahead.
based on like the coordinate system. So the bounds is based on like the coordinate system.
Which
Of,
one is like the 0, 1, 1, 1? Is that the bounds?
oh no, that's they both have 0, 0, and they have like a 0, 0 and an XY. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then so like frame is just like the super outside location and the view of the coordinator, and
Yeah.
then the bounds is like on the I'll say like on the inside, so you have the location and the size based on the super,
Oh, based on the super view.
yeah, on the super view,
Yeah.
yeah. Nice. And bonus question: what is an iOS app?
An iOS app.
Yes. How would you describe it?
An iOS app is any
Yeah,
application that you can download from the iOS App Store.
yeah.
That's what I call an iOS app. It has to. The only unique thing about there's so many things you can call an iOS app, but the
Mhm.
only thing that stands it out is that it was downloaded from the Apple App Store. It can be downloaded from the Apple App Store. If it cannot, then it's not considered an iOS app.
Nice. And yeah, just to close it off, what advice do you have to somebody who's like you when you're starting off, who's in the same shoes when they're going to start off to learn iOS development?
Um, I would say you have to realize like it's nothing good comes easy. So you got to realize before even going in there, days you're gonna feel like, man, I'm not good enough, or you have the imposter syndrome, everyone's better than me, or like your app is just crashing, doesn't feel like nothing is working. You know, those are the days that they come, but you have to realize like you won't be where you are if it's not for those bad days. And my biggest thing I tell people is behind every bug is a lesson. So as a new developer, you're gonna have a ton of bugs. You'd be like, yo, I don't understand what this means.
Hmm.
But it's all lessons. We learn from failure. That's one thing I know for sure, for sure. We
Right.
learn from complete failure. And that's the biggest thing I can say.
Nice. So, and where can people find you and reach you on the internet?
Oh yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, uh, Perez Willie-Nwobu. So Perez. My last name is Willie hyphen Nwobu. Sounds crazy, but I'm African. Deal with it. But you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, Life of Perez altogether. So
Perfect.
that's my handle. And besides being an iOS engineer, I'm also a UX designer and a QA engineer. So if you're any of those, hit me up for sure.
Perfect. Yeah. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today and wishing you all the best.
All
Yeah,
right, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
sure. It's okay.